Hey, what is going on, everybody? It is your boy Connor, your Primitive AK here, back with another video for you guys today. Today we are going to be covering the top 5 best tips to improve at gunfights inside of Call of Duty Warzone, because gunfights are kind of a tough thing that a lot of people struggle on, and a lot of people actually did ask on my recent videos to make a video talking about how to win more gunfights in Call of Duty Warzone. So I figured it would be best if we cover that. If you guys are new to the channel, make sure you guys leave a like and subscribe. There's a decent chunk of you guys that aren't subbed to the channel that have been regularly watching my videos. I know I do say this a lot, but I just want to make the notification to you guys so that way you guys never miss a video from my channel. So if you're not subbed, be sure to hit that sub button. It's completely free and it helps your buddy out. So let's go ahead and jump into the first piece of information on winning more gunfights inside of Warzone. And the first tip on the list is going to actually be, before you even play a single game of Warzone, you want to go ahead and warm up against some veteran bots. And the reason why I say veteran bots is because not only is this going to help with your aim, but this is also going to help out with your reaction times. So go ahead and jump into a nice little private match against some bots. I recommend usually about 8 to 10, depending on what map you're playing. Make sure you're playing a nice, decently small map, like something like Shipment or even Shoot House, so that way you can find the enemies fairly easily. Make sure you turn on the radar on your settings. You guys can go ahead and copy the settings that I use here on screen. Make sure the radar is always on and play with some veteran bots. Make sure they're set to either hardened or veteran, so that way you can work on your reaction time, because it's not all about aiming, it's about positioning, your map awareness, situational awareness, and reaction times. Reaction time is a big thing that you want to focus on when it comes to winning more gunfights. So definitely take about 10 to 15 minutes or so, just warm up against some bots. You could also warm up against your friends as well if that's something that you want to do. You could also warm up in multiplayer, but because multiplayer can be kind of a cesspool lately, I recommend just sticking over to private matches, playing against some bots. That way it's less of a headache to deal with, especially with other players sometimes. The next big thing you'll want to cover over on the top 5 best ways to win more gunfights in Call of Duty Warzone is you want to ensure that your settings are up to par with what you think is best for your setup. Now, I did cover a full in-depth video talking about the best Call of Duty Warzone settings to use. Make sure you guys go ahead and check out that video. There will be an annotation on screen in the top right hand corner. Nice little card, that way you guys can go ahead and check out the settings. But to give you guys a brief overview on my settings, what you want to do is you want to play with your sensitivity. Figure out what sensitivity works best for you. Ideally, you'll want to play on a low sensitivity, because the lower sensitivities will allow you to hit your shots and be able to pace your shots, especially at long range fights. A lot of pro players play on low sensitivity, usually around a 4 or a 5, no higher than a 6, but most pro players stick at a low sensitivity. If you're feeling comfortable at a higher sensitivity, you can certainly do so, but you are bound to miss more shots more often. Your aim assist also is another thing you want to look into. I did cover this full in-depth, so make sure you guys go ahead and check out that video, because I talk about everything that you need to know about the aim response curve and also the different aim assists. But you'll have to check out that video, and it'll explain everything in depth. But once again, aim assist curve, you want to leave that on linear. I believe it is set to standard by default, and your aim assist set to standard as well. We'll talk, and like I said, be sure to check out the settings video, because we talk about motion blur and other things that will help not cause such a obstructive gameplay. So be sure to check that out. Clocking in at number 3 for the top 5 best ways to win more gunfights inside of Call of Duty Warzone is to actually center your shot. Now, this is a tip that I notice a lot of YouTubers actually don't particularly talk about, and this is something that snipers, your favorite snipers like Pamaj, Sprat, pretty much every sniper, Testy, they all do this specific tactic, and a lot of people don't talk about it at all, and I'm not entirely sure why, but that is centering your shots. Now, what the term centering means is you are actually centering your reticle before you even start shooting. This will allow for better accuracy, because the worst thing that you can do is just start blindly shooting around corners without actually properly centering your shot, and then you're probably going to be wondering why you just got outgunned by somebody who just immediately turns on you. I've made this mistakes numerous times before in multiplayer, but if you guys watch my gameplay, you guys notice that I'm actually centering my reticle before I even engage in the gunfight. This is something that you want to get in the habit of doing all the time, because you're going to win a lot of gunfights if you manage to actually do this, and it's probably one of the best tactics that a lot of people don't utilize. So you want to make sure that you're utilizing this. Center your shots. Like I said, you can practice this in private match, practice it in multiplayer. Center your shots as much as possible. Make sure your scope is somewhat in the center of the screen of the player that you're aiming at, and then what you want to do is you want to make sure the correction comes into the play. The correction is where you have to move your right thumbstick just a tad bit, so that way you can correct whatever mistakes are made with within your centering. That way you're pretty much guaranteed to win the gunfight almost every single time. So definitely center your shots as much as you can, and that way you'll win more gunfights this way. Clocking in at number 4 for the top 5 best ways to win more gunfights inside of Call of Duty Warzone is to actually pick and choose your gunfights carefully. This is a big thing that a lot of players do not pay attention to at all. You want to be able to pick and choose your gunfights very carefully, because if you shoot the wrong person, chances are you're going to get third-partied. And if you're not familiar with the term third-party, I'll explain that in a bit. The chances are you're going to get shot from behind by another team. Now, if you play games like Fortnite, Blackout, any other battle royale game, third-party basically means if you're third-partying a team, basically there's two teams fighting each other. All of a sudden, your team strolls along and starts fighting both of those teams, and both of those teams that you're shooting get caught off guard, and chances are you're almost guaranteed to win that third-party fight. That's essentially what third-partying means, and it's something that I do a lot. It's something that I hate when it gets done to me, but you don't want it. You want to make sure you're doing this to other teams as much as possible. And when it comes to pick and choosing your fights, let's say, for example, one guy's running inside of the middle of the open, two guys are shooting at you. Obviously, your team is going to want to focus on the guys that are shooting at you directly. You don't want to focus on the guy that's running, because he's not the threat. The threat is the people that are actually facing in front of you. And this is another thing when it comes to shooting out in the wide open, especially in Warzone, because you're going to run into a lot of these situations. If you shoot the wrong person, chances are that guy that you're shooting is not going to end up being killed by your bullets, because he's going to sprint behind cover. Meanwhile, the initial threat, which is, Timmy No Thumb sniping in the back of the spawn, who was the much bigger threat, is going to end up doming your cap right off. It's because you decided to focus on the guy that looked like a free kill, but in reality it actually wasn't. He saw you, he was just running to cover. Meanwhile, the initial threat, which was a sniper somewhere up on the hill, is the one that actually sniped you and killed you and completely ended your entire squad. That is the guy you want to focus on, and that is the bigger threat. So pick and choose your fights carefully. On top of that, map positioning and awareness is a big thing, because if you're not positioning yourself in gunfights properly, you're gonna die a lot. And this is another big tip that I want to get into, and that's to pick and choose your map awareness. Be aware of the circle and your surroundings. This is a big one that a lot of people don't touch on at all, but basically what you want to do is you want to keep an eye on the mini map at all times. Now, I'm not saying completely tunnel vision your mini map, because that's not something that you want to do at all, because if you do that, chances are you're going to end up getting clapped by another team, because you spent too much time looking at the radar. I make this mistake as well, so don't feel like you're the only one that makes this mistake in certain games, but it is something that you want to be aware of at all times. Keep an eye on where you're hearing shots, because chances are if you're hearing shots, another team is either shooting at you or another team is shooting at another team, and that's where you want to go ahead and try and third party those guys. And when you do get into a gunfight, this is where being aware of your surroundings comes into handy. I know there are scenarios where you can't control this, where let's say an end circle may be in the middle of the wide open and there is no cover whatsoever. But what you want to do is you want to be aware of your surroundings when you're able to do so, because if you get into a gunfight, a lot of times what people do in Warzone and gunfights, what they do is they just start shooting blindly and they have no cover around them whatsoever. Take a minute, figure out where your surroundings are. If there's cover nearby, take a few shots. It doesn't matter if you take a bit of some damage. Try to get around cover first. Now, obviously, if you're in the middle of the wide open and you got 3 guys shooting at you, ideally what you want to do is just pretty much get out of there as quickly as possible. Or if it's a one-on-one fight and you know you can win that fight, then by all means go right ahead and try to win the fight. But most cases what you want to do is ensure that you're in cover at all times. If you guys watch my multiplayer gameplays, you'll notice this is something that I do often. I will deny a gunfight so that way I can get to cover first, re-challenge the guy, and basically win that fight. So be aware of your surroundings, make sure you're staying in cover, and like I mentioned, I know there are times where you cannot control this because an end circle may be in the middle of the wide open and there's pretty much nothing you can do. That's out of your control at that point, but try to be aware of it as much as possible. So just to summarize the top 5 tips on Warzone for winning more gun sites: number 5, warm up against some bots. Number 4, check out your settings. I made a video covering settings, so make sure you guys check that out. Link will be in the description and also an annotation prior to the screen as well. Next up, center your shots for the tip number 3. Acquire your target before actually shooting is something that you want to do. Pick your gunfights careful and assess the situation as much as possible before engaging in a fight, and also be aware of the circle and your surroundings. You want to ensure that you're in cover at all times for most of your gunfights. Do the best you can, and if you take these tips, practice a little bit more, play a lot, play with a good squad as well, I can guarantee you're going to rack in some more wins for your account there. Hopefully you guys do enjoy this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys have another Warzone video that you guys have in mind that I haven't made on my channel, make sure you guys leave a like and subscribe. Leave it down in the comments box down below for some more video suggestions, because I do make these videos for you guys, so I really do hope they're helping you guys out. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. It is your boy Carnage, or Primitive AK, signing out. Peace out, fellas.